I'm very glad that I bought the Canon G7X. It's truly been an excellent camera. It does have some limitations which I'll discuss, but in preparing for this video, I looked at my Lightroom catalogs on both my Windows PC and also on my iMac, and I have shot over 20,000 photographs with the camera, so I've certainly gotten quite a bit of use, and I haven't regretted the purchase.
One of the reasons that I chose the G7X over the Sony that was more expensive was the great menu. I want to show you how simple it is to change modes on this camera. So in one point, wherever we touch on the back screen, you can move your focus point around. The other mode that you have available, easily accessible with the touch screen, is Face Artificial Intelligent Autofocus. And that's what I was using in the videos where it just found my face. It just does a great job. All right, so let's go back to the single point mode. So there we are. And you have a size on the autofocus frame, whether you want the small or whether you want normal. And we're going to go to small just so we can get more details on this. And so I'm going to give us a feature. Now, before I do that, I also want to mention this Servo Autofocus. What it does is it allows the camera to be looking for focus ahead of the time. As I mentioned earlier, this particular camera only has 1 frame per second burst capability in the continuous mode, so it's not particularly fast, but I want to go ahead and show you how well this whole system works. So the first thing I'm going to do is leave the menu and bring an object in here. I have this light, and so see how that square goes to blue? Whenever you're holding that shutter down halfway, it'll find the subject in that blue and try to track it, just anticipating that focus. So until you push the shutter down halfway, what it's doing is it's anticipating focus. So it's kind of pre-focusing. Once you get the blue, it's going to lock into what you have. All right, so that's how that works in the Servo mode. Let's go back to the menu and turn Servo Autofocus off, and I'll show you the difference. So this time, we're going to get a green focus lock. And this camera really does a nice job of locking in. And despite the low light I'm shooting in here, you know, it does a very, very good job. It has very good close-up performance. The minimum focusing distance at 100 millimeter equivalent is 40 centimeters. That's 15.7 inches, so you can get nice close-up photos.
Turned out to be a much better video camera than I expected, a much better vlogging camera, and that was introduced to me very quickly when I set it up alongside my Nikon digital SLR, and my friend had his digital SLR set up, also a Nikon. It turned out that the image quality shot with the G7X was much better and much less noisy, higher bit depth in the footage, and just a nice presentation. And I actually have a screen capture up from the musical production we were called upon to video, and for a screen grab, I think it holds up pretty darn well. I purchased this camera in 2015. I needed a travel camera. I had been extended an invitation by my daughter, who was out of the country at the time, going to the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada, and we had a chance to do some night street photography and also just some general walk around town type photography. I didn't want to haul a digital SLR with me on an airplane, and so I bought the G7X based on the Canon marketing hype. You too can have the camera for photographers who want the power, the control, and even the image quality of a digital SLR, but in a small enough package to fit in your pocket. Well, that's kind of true, and in some cases, there's some things about that statement that need to be clarified. But getting back to the video quality, that's been a pleasant and surprise that I'm still unpacking in its complete abilities.
All right, so here I am out with my trusty G7X. I've had this camera since early 2015, and I was really disappointed with the image quality yesterday of my...
This clip was destined to be an outtake. However, it shows the better exposure and the stickiness of the face tracking on my old G7X compared to the M50.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the nice things about this camera is the very compact size. And I have fairly small hands, but you can see that the whole setup is easily less than the size of my hand. And then the nice thing is I have a little kit where I keep a spare battery like this. And I carry another compact flash card or two in this little kit. This goes inside this little camera bag that I have. Let me show you that. So I'm going to turn this camera off. Put the screen down. And the nice thing is I didn't have to buy anything new. This was a camera bag going back to an early point shoot camera that I had, an early Canon PowerShot that I had. So anyway, this goes in here, and these are some other cards that I could put in there if I wanted to. And so this is the kit with a spare battery, spare card, and then this is a spare Canon battery that I have for this camera. And you know, everybody complains about the battery life, but I've had pretty good success. I've only gone through 2 batteries in a whole day of shooting, so not too bad. So they're pretty small. You can easily carry them. And once my warranty was out, I went to aftermarket batteries, and never had any problems. I did buy the batteries at B&H. They had some good reviews on them, so I didn't want to go completely blind on what I bought. Anyway, very compact, a lot of power, a nice vlogging camera. I just want to show a little bit about my G7X. The question is, on the earlier G7X, this one and the Mark II, there's no dedicated microphone jack, so everybody wants to know how you get good audio. What I have here is a setup where there's Velcro on the top of the camera, and over here I have the dead cat that goes on top of that Velcro. It has Velcro on the bottom, and so if you flip that over here, which I'm going to do, it attaches to the Velcro that's on the camera. Now, I have another dead cat that I have for this camera where I cut it around just so I could easily access the on and off button. You can see how I cut the Velcro back. But with that dead cat on, the wind performance is really very good. I used to do external recording with a lapel mic. I had a Rode Lav Plus. I found out with this setup, it was good enough, and it saved me a lot of extra steps in editing.
I'm going to enclose a video clip of a deer shot using the digital zoom on my iPhone, and there's just no way you can get the same quality of results of distant subject with an iPhone that you can with a camera with a 100mm equivalent optical zoom. My brother-in-law with his G7X Mark II was in the balcony of a church and shot a young man doing a solo, and he used the full 100mm plus full 10x digital, and ended up getting that photograph published. And so that's he had high praise for that little camera that could. And again, I'm going to show the clip of a deer that I shot, and then I'm going to show you what I was able to capture with the camera using the optical zoom. Remember that video I made about my feelings towards Canon marketing? Partly the way I feel about Canon marketing comes from other experiences, but in this camera, it's the performance at the advertised 24mm wide-angle lens. It actually isn't a 24mm wide angle, and you can see that if you use a program that doesn't automatically correct the image. You'll see that the image doesn't cover the whole focus circle. And so they're digitally stretching the corners to provide the effect of a 24mm lens. The trouble with that is you're fine as long as you're shooting people in the center of the frame, or if you have a vlogging situation where you want to be in the center of the frame. But if you're shooting landscape or architecture where the corners have to be sharp, the corners get real wonky, and I'm going to throw a frame shot up at Capitol Reef just showing that. And there's no way to fix it. What I learned to do with this camera was work around that lens and shoot from about the equivalent of 35mm all the way out to the 100 and stitch panoramas together. But I bought it for landscape, I bought it for architecture, and so I really felt that I should have been given a little better information about the camera by Canon. The Sonys were quite a bit sharper in the corners, and a fine example, if you get on and you can compare in DP Review, the current issues of their reviews, you'll see they have the same problem in the corners with the latest generation G7X Mark II compared to the Sony RX100 Mark VII, which is an amazing lens. It's 24 to 200mm, and it's quite a bit sharper across the range than the Canon offering. That being said, being a photographer that can adapt, I learned to work around that. So I limited how wide I shot the camera. I also learned that the lens was pretty soft till I got to about f4, and f5.6 was an improvement. So I also learned just a little bit about my particular camera, my lens, so I could work around it. And I'm going to be showing you in the background these photos. The big surprise is how good the camera focused at close subjects, and its near macro capabilities coupled with a great depth of field from the small sensor make for some spectacularly good close-up pictures. G7X is a very good camera, in some ways an excellent camera. For vlogging, it's very convenient. The size is hard to beat. In the photos that I'm showing you, I could not have easily carried a digital SLR. By having the Canon G7X with me, I was able to get the photo of the arch that I'm showing you right now. So the size is hard to beat. The performance, once you know the limitations of the camera, is very good. It has a very good sensor. It has very good autofocus. The video quality is amazingly good. And be aware that the Mark II and the Mark III are even improved. One of the features that it does have for video is a built-in neutral density filter. And then with the Mark II, 4 stops of image stabilization, plus you pick up 8 frames per second in RAW and JPEG capture. And then with the Mark III, you had a microphone jack, and that may be the ideal blogging camera, particularly for portability and image quality. It also offers 4K. So the G7X Mark III looks like just a nice progression in the family of G7X cameras. I've enjoyed mine. I'm glad I bought it. I just have a little bit of reservations about calling it a 24mm wide angle, but other than that, it's a very good camera. Hit that like button if this helped you. Please subscribe, and if you want to get notified of my next video, hit that bell.